Welcome to today's episode, brought to you by the Women in Medicine Summit, a transformational CME conference happening September 13th to 14th at the Drake Hotel in Chicago. Engage in leadership programming, learn negotiation skills, receive on-site coaching and mentoring, and see who will win this year's I Stand With Her awards. This year, we're excited to offer unique programming that includes a special session on how using improv comedy can bring fun back into medicine. We also have financial sessions tailored to help you navigate the complexities of personal and professional finances. Discover ways to advance into leadership roles, combat burnout, and either reignite your love for your current role or find joy in a new career path. Don't forget our Friday evening gala, a highlight this year you definitely won't want to miss. Register now at womeninmedicinesummit.org and be part of the movement that is shaping the future of healthcare. Join us to network, learn, and celebrate the power of women in medicine.
Welcome to the Revitalizing Doctor podcast. We interview trailblazers in medicine that embody the Revitalize Women vision to empower women to innovate and influence medicine, to value authenticity, respect, and work-life harmony. We recognize the challenges in medicine, and we're committed to providing coaching-informed strategies to help you go from surviving to thriving. Welcome to part 2 of my interview with Mark Sayer. He's a personal trainer and very long-time friend of my husband. They actually went to college together, and I have gotten to know Mark over the years and count him as a friend as well. Mark was very important in my journey to be more inspired to take better care of myself. And I'm excited to share his knowledge with you. And I hope this episode inspires you to take better care of your body. You do such an amazing job taking care of the well-being of patients. And I think many of us could do a better job taking care of ourselves. And it's okay as a physician to reach out for help from a personal trainer, from a nutritional coach, whatever you need. It is okay. As we say at Revitalize, you really don't have to go at it alone. If you're interested in working with Mark, I would suggest checking his website, sayerfit.com. He's also on Instagram, and you can message him at sayerfit. Please enjoy part 2 of my interview with Mark. So Mark, you live in Brooklyn and you have a lot of clients in New York City, type A personalities, Wall Street types. And what have your observations been on stress, how people are doing right now in the pandemic, and what would your recommendations be for incorporating some tangible takeaways that are actually going to help people manage their stress better, especially at this moment in the pandemic?
So for stress management, I would say the number one thing to do is keep your phone out of your room. So all my high performers, that's what they do. And then also be very cognizant of your mental diet and the type of information you're allowing to come into that.
So when you say keep your phone out of your room, are you saying your bedroom at a certain time? What do you mean by that?
Bedroom at a certain time. Yeah. And it's a challenging conversation to have because I don't think people realize how addicted they are to their phone. So the most common thing people will say is, my phone is my alarm. There's a part of my brain that just wants to scream and say something like to the effect of well, you realize there's only been cell phones with everybody for the last 20 years. And there is a way for you to wake up, I used to have a screenshot of a $9.99 alarm clock on Amazon, but then I realized that type of approach is not helping anybody. And what they're really saying is because nobody's so stupid that they can't come up with a solution to waking up without their phone. Okay. Well, most right. No, that's right. So what they're really saying is hey, I am so attached to this thing that I have to come up with the first excuse possible as to why I cannot divorce myself from this device. I think a lot of people are that is their only dopamine hit is, getting the text message, getting the email alert ping, getting the Instagram ping. So it's like for myself, I also have a tactic. I make a no social media time from Saturday evening until Monday morning because I'm so prevalent on Instagram to advertise my business and show what I'm doing. Then I'm like, okay, that is my mental health tactic because I have to be on there for work is to put that barrier on there. And it's been great.
I'm totally going to steal that suggestion because I think a lot of us have a social media presence for, the various businesses we're involved in. And I love setting that boundary that really, do I need to be on it Saturday night to Monday morning? No.
And also current clients expect me to be on there giving nutrition tips, showing my own training, showing what kind of training people are doing. So this way then I've established, and that's where everybody who knows me, even casually or just even through media presence, knows that Mark is offline Saturday to Monday morning. So there's also not that subconscious drive, should I be posting something right now? People know that in a way, it's even better. It's a source of kind of third party accountability because I've set this boundary for myself. So now if I go on there and somebody sees that I'm active on Instagram, they're like, oh, Mark's full of shit. So it's a way that all these 13,000 people don't realize it, but they're helping keep me accountable.
I love that. And I am so guilty. I set the away message on my last vacation on email and I replied to several messages and I gave the boundary and then I was still on there. So I just needed to leave the laptop at home.
I feel like low testosterone in women is probably something that should be addressed as well. But specifically for men, the conversation I have with them is all right, your stress hormone, cortisol, and then testosterone, basically they walk through the same doorway. And if cortisol is going through that doorway all the time for stress, testosterone does all these wonderful things. And it's not just often it's seen as just an aggression hormone, but it's lean body tissue, it's mood. Also, you follow it all, Huberman Labs, and talking about how having a healthy amount of testosterone in your body also makes physical exertion feel more satisfying. So, but the stress aspect of that, if you're constantly stressing, looking at your phone, I tell my men client, looking at your email constantly at 10 p.m. is making you less of a man.
Wow. That must be a pretty powerful message. And I think a lot of our audience members they feel whether it's real or not, they feel very tied to their phone and emails from work. I can just speak from an emergency medicine standpoint. We're always getting emails about scheduling or somebody can't come in. Can you cover this shift? This new COVID protocol is out. Make sure you know this. And so it's you're always under this, which I'm now accepting, really false feeling that the world's about to end and that, you opening that email is going to really do something about it.
I mean, but the world's always been, you know what I mean? It's I'm probably misquoting this, but it was Plato or something. It was said once, surely this is the end of days. Look at the youth today. And I mean, thousands of years ago. So that's kind of my answer to that. But also on the flip side, I think a lot of people, and this is where having self-imposed physical hardship is so important in our modern life because we're hardwired for that. If we weren't hardwired for that, we wouldn't have evolved. The genes that you have made it to this point in the evolutionary game are designed to need physical stress. And if they don't get that, they're going to look for it other places. And I feel like a lot of us are addicted to stress and don't even realize that when I get that pushback of, hey, you should put your phone away. Well, I can't. It's my alarm clock. It's somebody saying, hey, I'm actually addicted to stress. Sure, you're in finance. Well, come on. You're not Obama. No one's texting you with anything that important. Sometimes it'll be an artist. No one's texting you anything that important at 10:30 p.m. No one's hitting me up with a fitness emergency at 10:30 p.m. If they are, they'll know.
Right. I think that's really good advice that, really taking stock in when do you truly need to be accessible? Now we've got parents listening to this. I understand the need to be accessible to your children. But when we look at work, what boundaries can you set around having some time that, and like you said, make that boundary known. Like, I don't answer work emails after 5 p.m. And if it's truly an emergency, this is what, my husband says, if it's truly an emergency, then that person should be calling me. And that's a big step if you're calling somebody after hours. So that's kind of a built-in boundary. All right. So I noticed you've got your Whoop device on. I also have mine on as well. And we've actually we had a whole episode featuring Whoop on the show. And so let's back up because not all of our listeners may have heard that episode. What is the Whoop device and how are you using it?
So the Whoop device is a convenient wrist monitor of biometrics, so resting heart rate variability. It uses your heart rate to track like your sleep rhythms and then also like respiration rate. But the two primary ones that I'm looking at are it's resting heart rate and HR.
So, everybody's got all these different devices. Your Apple Watch can measure heart rate variability. What is your rationale when you're talking to a potential client about why they may want to get a Whoop device?
Heart rate variability, just really quick, I'll do a quick review for those listening who do not know what it is. It is the variance in your heartbeat. So for example, if you had 60 beats per minute and your heart was beating one beat precisely 1.00000 second, you would have zero heart rate variability. That would be an indication that your system, there is no balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic. A healthy heart rate variability shows that like those two systems are both robust. Also from an athletic training standpoint, if I see somebody has a heart rate, say in the hundreds or like high 80s, I can put them under more workload than somebody say in like the 30s.
Sorry, I want to just press on that for a little bit because that's kind of been the part that I haven't been really clear on. I've heard people say your heart rate variability, we've talked about it on the show. So high heart rate variability suggests that your parasympathetic response kicks in appropriately and brings your heart rate down under periods of stress. But what I had been told in the past is essentially your number is unique to you and it's not necessarily really comparable. So I'll use myself as an example. My lows are in the 30s and my highs are in the upper 40s and 50s. Would you have an assessment? Could I ever be a person that could have heart rate variability in the 60s or 70s? Or is 50s just where I'm going to be the rest of my life?
Yeah, I mean, so it's different from say resting heart rate. So if I have somebody whose resting heart rate is 70, that's an all stop. Even if they're a strength athlete, they're not going to recover very well from powerlifting workouts. It's less of a hard metric than resting heart rate is. And you are correct. It is more individual to the person, but the more endurance activity you do, usually then the higher your heart rate variability. And the reason why is because the aerobic system drives recovery. The anaerobic system, power strength, athletes, 100-meter dash, doing 1,000-pound squat, that is a separate energy system. But recovery is, and if you think about it, it makes sense. When you are in the process of recovering, never, out of breath per se. So the aerobic system drives recovery. So it's not that you are not healthy per se. It's just you would be theoretically less able to take on less stress.
Right. Which makes sense because I'm not an Olympic athlete and,
a strength athlete will have a lower HRV than say an endurance athlete.
So the way I've been thinking about this device and why I think a lot of us in medicine are interested about it is I've been using it personally that when I have a bad recovery day or my heart rate variability for the last 24 hours was really low, I try to think about what I was doing in that last 24 hours and I try to take it a little easier that day. And maybe I still do a workout, but maybe it is just a brisk walk because a lot of times for me, it's post night shift, which we kind of know intrinsically that post night shift, your body just went through a period of stress. But I have lots of colleagues that tell me on their post night shift day, they'll go out on a 5-mile run, put themselves under a lot of stress.
I mean, it doesn't mean just because you have a low recovery day, it doesn't mean you can't perform. It just means, you're going to possibly dig that hole. Doesn't mean that like you can't perform, but fatigue is cumulative. You're just, you're taking more money out of the bank is how I would say.
I think that's a really good way to look at it, because I will have colleagues that say, I'm post night shift. I think I'm going to do that run before I go to bed. And I will tell them 100%, go to bed, because we know the sooner you go to bed after a night shift, especially if you get home before the sun rises, the better that sleep's going to be. So I'd rather have them do their run after sleeping. But I get your point that it's not like going to hurt you per se, but at some point you have to recover.
However, especially depending like how sympathetic that run is, right? Because like depending on your fitness level, a run could be actually just, it's in the, heart rate zone of recovery activity because blood flow is needed for recovery. So like sitting on the couch and just watching Netflix is not going to help you recover the same way as going for a light swim, going for a brisk walk. So for this particular person, if that run is in the parasympathetic heart range, it could help with it. What I would be more concerned with is that if you do highly sympathetic fight or flight, like let's say highly sympathetic activity would be interval training, 400 meter sprint run would be highly sympathetic. Then try to go to bed, you're most likely going to disrupt your sleep.
That is a really good tip. I think that's extremely practical. So just think about if you really do need to do some type of physical activity, which some of us have had shifts like that. You get to the end of it and something bad happened, or you're really revved up because you had a negative interaction with a family member or consultant. So maybe if you need to do something to discharge that, try to pick something that's going to be a little bit more parasympathetic. So a lighter jog, lighter swim, yoga versus maybe boxing.
Yeah, totally. I really like the Wim Hof app. If you're not breathing, it's hard to think about anything else except like when you can breathe again. So I, a lot of times like something's bugging me, I'll do that app a few times and then I'll just get like a sense of well-being, which people might be like, well, that sense of well-being is because you starved yourself of oxygen for like 2 minutes at a time. But either way, it works. I just want to touch on what I feel is like one of the most powerful things about the Whoop, especially with dealing with, and I should say dealing with, when being actually a type A person myself, and then like the people I coach who we've used their Whoop to help them prep for powerlifting meets or body composition goals, is that this gives you a reward feeling for recovering and relaxing. Because otherwise, like people, especially in New York, especially men, carry around this crucifix of sleep deprivation and still doing the 5-mile run or still doing the weight training. And, whereas this now gives you you get that. And I'm addicted to it in like a healthy way where it's like, I wake up and like, I want to get to bed early because like, I want to see that 95% green score. I don't want to see that red 33%. I'm like getting to bed early. Like, I'm seeing that green. I'm kicking ass, whereas like otherwise, the zeitgeist is like, well, hey, like, I slept 4 hours, still got the weights in. And, sure, maybe you performed, you didn't perform as well as you could have, but it gives people that like carrot.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Are you a physician mom with school-aged children feeling utterly exhausted? My friend Dr. Sheeta Shaffi invites you to take a little time this summer to join her in a small, intimate group for meaningful conversations. Dr. Shaffi is an emergency physician, coach, and mom to 8-year-old twins. She understands firsthand what you're going through. This isn't a pizza party or a yoga class. You'll meet for 2 one-hour sessions twice a month starting in July to help you move out of exhaustion, let go of mom guilt, and live a life you're not only proud of, but can truly enjoy. Connect with her on LinkedIn or Instagram at Sheeta Shafie to learn more. Sheeta is spelled Shideh, and Shafie is spelled Shafie. You can also check the show notes for a link so you can connect with her there as well. I love that. So if you're, kind of a lot of us in medicine like to carry around the crucifix as well, this gives you some objective information about how you're recovering, and you can use that as some positive reinforcement.
100%. And then also too, I don't know how familiar you are with the Braverman test for personality types. So especially this is something I'll use for my dopamine driven trainees.
So one thing I wanted to touch on today is some of us do want to take supplements for various reasons. And a lot of our audience are health professionals, so they can do their own research. So for instance, personally, I like taking a multivitamin and I like taking magnesium most nights. But it's always bothered me that we don't really know what's in the supplement. I mean, I try to pick up the bottle at CVS. I'm trying to figure out if this is going to be what I'm paying for, but we don't know. So what's the deal with that? And what do you recommend for a client that wants to make sure they're getting what they intend when it comes to supplements?
Andrea, that's a great question. And it's something that I talk a lot about on my social media and with clients, is that it is a safe assumption that when you purchase something from GNC or from CVS, from Vitamin Shop, that you are not getting, at least that you are not getting the amount of the supplement that is claimed, if even the exact supplement at all. Because as of 1994 in America, the DSHEA Act, supplements are basically given free range where they're self-regulated. The government will only step in and stop a company from selling a product if they are I can sell you vitamin D. I basically get away with selling you vitamin D pills that are actually just gelatin, as long as I don't put arsenic in there as well.
Oh, I'm glad that's the bar, arsenic.
Yeah. So some tips for somebody. So from my own experience, I had insufficient vitamin D, and I was taking over the counter, and then I retested in 6 months, and I saw an increase of 2 nanograms per deciliter. Then I switched to a practitioner grade one. I took 10,000 IUs for about a month, and then I scaled back to 5,000 IUs, and now I'm at 80 nanograms. So it's just my own experience, using over the counter, where I didn't see any increase. And it's about 4,000 IUs a day. And I'm a nutritionist, so I knew to take it with a fat source as well, since it's a fat soluble vitamin. But my best advice is get one of the practitioner grade products out there. Practitioner grade meaning the company goes through the same procedures for cleaning vats, for measuring, the amount of ingredients in there. And I am not in any way affiliated with either of these companies, but just two ones I send clients to is Designs for Health and Metagenics. If you cannot get one of those two brands, something to look for is an NSF certification, which NSF is a third-party vetting. It means that the supplement's going to have to pay a lot more money. It'll usually be more expensive. But once again, for the most part, if you're going to go cheap with supplements, better just not go at all. And at the very least, look for something that's been certified safe for sport.
I think that's really practical advice for our listeners. There has been so much that we could just continue to talk about today, and you've had so many interesting pearls for our audience. What are the top two books that you would recommend our listeners read if they want to learn more about nutrition and exercise?
I'd say the best diet book out there is The Metabolic Diet. And then you might be surprised that for nutrition, I'm going to recommend a book that's not a nutrition book, but I would say The One Thing. Because really, when you're going to try changing nutritional things, you need to do, one thing. That way you can either see improvement or not see improvement. And then if that's not working for you, you go on to the next thing and you stick with it for a couple of weeks or a month, and then you get a new thing. That makes sense. I usually start people out with hydration. A lot of times people want to go 0 to 60, and I'm like, okay, you've been not paying attention to anything you eat for a decade. We're going to do hydration first. And so I would say the one thing, even though it's not a diet book, that's going to give you a good mindset to approach your fitness and diet goals.
I love it. One of my favorite mentors used to always say, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So, and I think it's true for a lot of things in life. It's very overwhelming. Let's say you are somebody that's overweight right now, and maybe you got your cholesterol numbers back and they're not good. It's very overwhelming of where to start. So practical tip, start with something small like hydration. So what are you working on right now? What's Mark Sayer working on in the performance world? We always like to ask our guests what they're doing to improve, and you can pick any facet of life.
Right now, I am just trying to systemize a little bit better, like my nutrition coaching process and intake forms, and also just movement assessments. I'm going to compete in strongman this weekend, kind of last minute. So I'm in the process of doing a water cut to make weight.
What would be your, I guess, one thing that you'd like our audience to work on? I know that's a blanket generalization, but we always like to issue a challenge to our listeners at the end of every episode.
Specifically for your audience, I would think like try backloading your carbs. Meaning try like, if you're going to go on a shift, instead of going for traditional like breakfast food, trying the meat nuts diet or meat nuts protocol, and then waiting until the end of the day when you intentionally want to be sleepy before bed to have your quality carbohydrates.
I love that. And that definitely ties into Lisa Deutsch's episode. And I would say if you missed that episode, this would be a great sister-brother episode to pair up, because Lisa talked a lot about that too, and she's an emergency doc, about how to be strategic about what you eat and also the volume of what you eat, because as your stomach expands, you get that rest and digest cycle, which is not good 6 hours into your night shift.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And like, I find that like sometimes people like, I'll look at their breakfast and I would say also like redesign like what your concepts of healthy are. Like I'll have some of they'll, because often what I'll do with clients, I'll be, okay, like, we're not ready to track with MyFitnessPal app or like go all with that. Like I want you to just text me your breakfast. And then that's often our one thing. Once you get hydration down, I want people to eat breakfast. And I'll get like what'll look like a healthy breakfast, right? It'll be like, one example is glass of orange juice, banana, and oatmeal. And I was like, okay, you just had a meal before you're going to go sit in an office. You had a meal that's 90% carbohydrates, 50% simple carbohydrates. And you're telling me like you have to have 5 cups of coffee to make it to lunch. Of course you do. It's like, you're having the carbohydrate load of like, 3 cans of Coca-Cola. It's just dressed up as something healthy.
I love that. That was such a great tip and very practical advice to our audience. Well, it's been so wonderful having you on the podcast, Mark. Where can our listeners find you? Where can they connect with you?
It's sayerfit.com or Sayerfit on the Instagrams. And that's SAYERFIT. Just say Sayer, like the band Slayer, just no L, and fit as in fitness.
Thank you for listening to The Revitalizing Doctor. We have an exclusive offer for our listeners. Get 20% off your Epocrates subscription. To redeem, go to the website epocrates.com and log in to your account. Click on the payment and subscription link to redeem the discount using code REVDOC20. That's all caps REVDOC20. This offer is good for new subscribers and cannot be applied to active Epocrates Plus subscriptions. Thank you for listening. Now back to the show.
Thanks for listening this week. I could really use your help. If you could take a moment and review us. So just scroll down under the Revitalizing Doctor logo in your podcast app and hit review, and a 5-star rating would go a long way to helping more listeners find us. So I appreciate your support, and I look forward to bringing you new episodes. As always, if you have any feedback, you have a suggestion for an episode, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. So just shoot us an email at revitalizemm.info info@gmail.com, and I look forward to connecting with you. Thanks for listening to The Revitalizing Doctor, a project of Revitalize Women Physician Circle. Our mission is to connect women physicians and allies through innovative, value-based coaching methods that align trust, support, accountability, and skill development to ignite the courage and clarity necessary to take bold actions, create change, and thrive. If you're interested in working with us, check out our website at peoplealwayshcc.com/revitalize or email us at revitalizemm.info@gmail.com. This podcast represents the views of our host and guest. It does not reflect the views of any institution we work for or with.
Hi, it's Dr. Risa E. Lewis, dropping in to tell you about a book that Dr. Adara Landry and I wrote. It's called Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact. It's a business self-help book coming in 2024 by HarperCollins. Pre-order now. Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact, wherever you buy your books.